Welcome to the Phil Vogel podcast, where we talk dealership mergers and acquisitions, as well as all the other elements affecting dealerships' operations, trends, and technology. So if you like what you hear or see on today's show, please hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it, and you'll be alerted when the next show comes on. So today's sponsor is Tekion. Tekion is a new kind of DMS. In fact, it's way more than a DMS. Tekion is an automotive retail cloud. If you haven't heard or seen Tekion in action, you will very soon, I promise. Tekion is one platform that digitizes and runs your entire business and also allows complete integration with our industry's ecosystem partners. Tekion's AI engine gathers insights and personalizes both the consumer and dealership team member user experiences, smoothing out typical friction points. Increased profitability. As a result of Tekion's machine learning algorithms, personalized upsell and cross-sell opportunities are abound. Multi-dealer, multi-OEM, enterprise views for groups deliver actionable performance metrics and KPIs. And here's the best part: zero third-party integration fees. Yeah, unlimited data access, and the data is yours. You own it. And the icing on the cake, you can cancel with 30 days notice. You have to check out Tekion today. Tekion.com. So I'm really looking forward to today's show. With dealers' new car inventories at all-time lows and the battle for used vehicle inventories raging, fixed operations has become even more critical component to dealership operations and profitability. Our guest for the show is Chuck Kendig. Chuck is CEO of AMP, Accelerated Marketing Partners, an Omnicom company. Chuck enjoyed a long career with American Honda Motor Company before starting AMP 18 months ago. Chuck has held many positions at Honda with an emphasis on fixed operations marketing, so it's perfect for today. Welcome to the show, Chuck Kendig.
Hey, thank you very much. Really good to be with you, Phil. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, CK. We've been friends for a long time, and I'm so glad that we got to connect here on the show. So let's just get into it. But you've had a story. I mean, I really would like to know. You had this storied career with Honda, and you decided after a long career to switch sides and start AMP. So before we get into AMP, well, and what you are up to today, tell us a little bit about your career at Honda and what led you to this next stage of your career.
Yeah. Well, no, I had a tremendous amount of fun and learned a whole bunch and worked with a lot of unbelievable people for almost 30 years at American Honda. Gosh, everything from service to parts, market representation, sales, uh, large bit of it in fixed ops from regional areas to managing ultimately the Acura fixed operations operation for the U.S. market, which was a ton of fun. Developed a lot of interesting models and tools there as well. And then my
Right.
last 6, 7 years, sales and production planning. So kind of negotiating what we're going to build in what factories for the U.S. market, optimizing both Honda and Acura share of market, and then the physical logistics of getting vehicles from wherever we're building them in the world to the dealership networks in the U.S. Ton of fun. Had an absolute blast. Wouldn't trade a minute of it for anything. Um, but had an opportunity. I'd always thought I would be at Honda for maybe 10 or 15 years. Turned out to be almost 30. And
Right.
I had kind of put 2020 as my guidepost way out there to say, I think I need to try something different, or at least some different iteration of what I'm doing by the time
Right.
2020 ends up. And so, yeah, basically it was just kind of a self-imposed timeline. Um, there wasn't anything wrong with working at Honda. It was an absolute uh, joy, and like I say, a lot of really wonderful people and a lot of
Right.
great learnings. But it was just time to do something different, and there was this opportunity in the marketplace that I had been seeing for quite some time, which was that there a little bit of a disconnect between what's being offered in the market as far as fixed ops marketing and even lower funnel marketing, uh, and the performance of those things, and kind of the model that I built while I was at Honda. Obviously, from an insider standpoint, I was very much focused on how do I increase the service market share overall for the entire network in a sustainable way that's also economical. And that
Right.
model doesn't exist anywhere, very well, almost doesn't exist outside of the AMP offering. So that was
Really?
the yeah, the kind of the plan and the idea and the opportunity that Omnicom gave me to implement, which is what we've been working on for the last 18 months, and having a lot of fun, learning a lot, and meeting a lot of very interesting people in this side of the business too. So, yeah,
Well,
it's very weird to be on the agency side though.
right. I can imagine. There's a lot of shiny objects companies out there offering, marketing services. So tell us a little bit about what sets AMP apart from those companies.
Absolutely. I would say the first thing is, we're very, very focused on, our main metric is what is the service market share when we come in, and what is it, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months after. And much, you can measure lots of other ways. You can measure, obviously, dollars per repair order, parts per repair order. But
Sure.
none of that really matters unless you're growing the size of the piece of the pie you're getting from the overall market. So I would say the thing that differentiates us the most is that really keen focus on the actual business driver of the mechanics of how are you gaining market share. And to that end, we will implement in that cause, we will implement any technology needed, but we're not focused on technology or channel. We're focused on the results. And I think
Right.
that is kind of our key, one of our key differentiators. Um, the other is really, um, I would say, because we had to do this with the Acura and Honda network as we built it, transparent, 100% transparency. So there's
Hmm.
no, we don't have any black boxes. It's not trust us, you're going to like this. It's very transparent what we're doing, and the reporting is from a network level all the way down to a repair order and even a line item detail. So if a dealer wants to understand how much incremental lift he or she is getting out of the system, they can go all the way down. Their service manager can go all the way down at a repair order level, validate, yeah, that's somebody we haven't seen in 18 months. And wow, look at all the work he did on line item by line item. So it's very transparent and very powerful reporting that also helps inform what the next campaign should look like.
So are you measuring any? I understand the marketing component, but one of the other issues around fixed ops, right, in service business in particular, is the labor inventory that's available, right? I mean, dealers have got new car inventory, used car inventory, parts inventories, and they also have a labor inventory. Do you look into that, or do you leave that more to the DMS of the dealership?
Yeah, so we look very deeply at a network level and regionally at where we have pockets of excess capacity, or in some cases, some of the folks we're working for are very constrained. So yeah, so
Right.
before you try to jam an incremental 20% business into a shop, you better make sure you have the capacity to do so. Otherwise, you're just going
Sure.
to piss off a lot of people and spend money doing so, which isn't that helpful. But
Not good.
so
Not
yeah,
good
so
ad
and
spend.
we work with, yeah. So we're working with folks who have a tremendous amount of capacity and they can scale quickly, and others who are really fighting the fight that many are fighting, which is it's really tough to get great tech talent. Tech and advisor turnover is quite high in many cases, but some of the brands have figured it out quite well, and they have an ecosystem that feeds the tech and the advisor and even the manager levels quite well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is a very famous quote. So tell me how you feel about this quote. When it comes to marketing spend, be it variable or fixed, unless you can quantify the results, you shouldn't waste your resources on them. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that aligns very strongly with how I feel.
Yeah,
I think
that's
you should be you should be able to quantify, right, this is the input, this is how much we did, this is what we did, and what is the true lift, or what's the
Right.
incremental lift. Um, and
Absolutely.
another thing that I don't see happening a lot in the marketplace from other offerings, and I think it's because there isn't the incremental lift. I don't see a lot of A/B testing and a lot of control groups being held out. That's one thing we always do, right? You want to hold out a randomized control group. That's the only way
Mm.
you're going to find out, did the treated clients come in differentially than the non-treated clients. Without control groups, you're really not going to have a scientific way to understand the lift.
Well, are you pulling DMS data to kind of proof out the results, or are you just how's that being measured?
Yeah, yeah. So uh, so we operate generally with either large dealer group or OEMs. The OEMs pull all, and the large dealer groups pull all the data, usually nightly, if not more frequently. And then we work with that within their CRM database. And yes,
So
so we will look at.
you're working with dealer groups. Okay, that's interesting. I thought this was pure. You guys were purely an OEM direct play.
Yep, yep. No, so some of the larger dealer groups who we're talking with right now uh, are significant, have significant scale. And when you think about the ability to sell across so many different brands and keep them in your dealer group family, it's a tremendous opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you talk about dealer. Who is your target audience?
So broadly speaking, any large organization that has a centralized database and then a distributed network of retailers. So it could be,
Mhm.
literally, we've talked with real estate groups, we've talked with insurance agencies. Our sweet spot and where we got our start is in automotive. So it's
Right.
our target audience really is automotive OEMs and their fixed ops marketing teams and their lower funnel regional marketing teams for sales. And like I say, we're also pursuing and chatting with some large dealer groups who have equal scale and ability to uh, and large CRM database repositories that can be worked within.
Mm.
The key, one of the keys to the success is by having all the data centralized, you can spend an awful lot of brain time and put a lot of AI and a lot of data overlays centrally, and then use those learnings distributedly to your, let's say, the automotive partners, retailers. Um, to do that at an individual dealer base just wouldn't scale, nor would it be economically feasible.
Yet you can do a bespoke kind of offering for a dealer group, which is great.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
with all the concern of the media and attention around data security and recent large data hacks and breaches, how does AMP, how do you guys address that issue?
Yeah, very good question. And we've seen a lot of people get hurt recently. I mean, I think VW got hurt really bad. Actually, a few of the Germans got hurt very bad
Right.
very recently. Um, so it's interesting, and it wasn't for this purpose, but the way we constructed our model, uh, we don't take any PII data in or out. Everything is left in the OEM centralized database where we're building all of our analytic models. So literally, the chance or the opportunity where you have a weak link in the chain doesn't exist in our model, which is it appeals a lot to OEMs for many reasons. One is they own the data, but two is you
Right.
don't have the security concerns from this offering. Whereas literally every other offering, which where we've seen the data breaches, you have multiple hands that data PII data is going through, which is a recipe for a data breach, which is what we're seeing.
Mm. It's interesting. Yeah, there's a whole lot of data breaches going on around the world right now, and it just feels like it's like one after another after another. So, it's interesting. We had I had Jay Vijayan, who is the CEO of Techion, on, who is the sponsor of actually of this episode, and they they're taking the position that the dealers own their data, which is interesting from, with regards to the DMS companies out there.
Traditional, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but it's certainly a concern, and mitigating that kind of exposure for dealers, and I would imagine OEMs as well, is huge. So when you're pulling that data, you're not pulling any PII, but you're not not encrypting it all. So it's interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'd have to have my CTO on, but but
Yeah.
yeah, so we're doing all the analytics inside the environment at the OEM,
Right.
uh, and then we're identifying for targeting purposes and audience selection. We're identifying, you know, who needs to be treated with what campaign. And the only time like name and address and stuff get out is when it's going to basically to be executed at a mail house if you're doing direct mail, and that's going
Right.
direct from the database to that, and it's separated and then put back together. Um, so
Mm.
it's not like we're not taking a copy of all the PII or really hardly any data coming in or out of the CRM. So that's again, I'll have our CTO explain a little more. But
No,
this
it's
was
all good.
and and I
I
and I
just,
tell you
I
we
think I
didn't do
don't.
that on.
Go
I
ahead,
said
Chuck.
we
I'm
didn't
sorry. I
we
didn't mean
didn't
to cut you
we,
off.
no no that's all. And I gotta apologize. I have some tractors are going by mowing the lawn here, so I apologize. Um, the reason we built our model like this, and this is not going to be that interesting to probably a lot of your audience, so we can get off on a more relevant topics, but we built it this way. The model is because we wanted the dealer and the OEM to own the data and be in charge of the data, and to be able to unplug any vendor when the vendor was no longer satisfactorily operating or providing good value.
Right.
Because I was the OEM when I built it, I was the OEM, and I wanted to be able
Right.
to unplug anybody at any time, but still have all my analytics, all my data, and full control of the marketing reach. Anything else is you're looking at a 3
Right.
and 5 year contracts and churning and a lot of bright and shiny objects that don't work that well,
Right.
which is what we were trying to get away from. And in fact, we took our service market share at the time from about low 40s to mid 60 percentile, which is, as I'm sure you know, and
Huge.
as your viewers know, yeah, that's hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, depending on the
Right.
size of the OEM and the franchisee.
Yeah. Small incremental improvements add up to big dollars on the bottom line. Well, so speaking of that, let's get into it. So tell us what are some examples of the success you've had with your AMP model?
Sure, sure. No, it's been phenomenal, and I can tell you that. Well, I'd say first and foremost, and this is how we measure ourselves against anything: is are you increasing the size of the pie? There's X number of units in operation out there in the universe for your dealers to attract to their service base. What percentage of those do you have? We've taken major OEMs from literally from the low 40s to the mid 60s and kept them there. And again, that's
Mm.
that's huge money to retail partners, and it's huge money in the terms of part sales anyway to the OEMs. And of course, when you have that kind of lift, you're getting as a byproduct a 3x increase in repurchase rates. So it comes back to the new car sales piece, which is really really nice. We've taken in a couple of cases 25 and 30% of the expense out of the marketing, because when you're doing the smart marketing and using the analytics correctly, there's a lot of people you don't need to treat, and there's a lot of people you're over communicating to, or you're communicating with the wrong message that's pissing them off. Um,
Yeah.
we've seen ROI going up as much as 47%, and I'm talking in year number one of implementation. Uh,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
which is tremendous. Uh, One thing that if I'm a dealer, it hurt me as an OEM. I would see people coming in to get the free oil change or the prepaid oil change, or maybe they just come in, for a piece of recall work, something that's not very expensive or zero to
Sure.
them. But there was this category of people who looked loyal if you thought, okay, they're coming in like once or twice a year, but they're not really doing much work. We identified this group of people who we call them kind of cheaters, and they weren't doing the real work. So they weren't doing the the B12s, they weren't doing the 30, 60, 90 or the timing belt and water pump work, the real work that you want to get in a service shop. We identified that we both studied it qualitatively and quantitatively, and developed a program, like a campaign inside of our system, to target those people to bring them back in. And I will tell you, the first time we ran that campaign gave us an incremental lift of $1 billion in fixed ops revenue. And that was one
Over what
campaign
kind of
over the
period
course
of
of three
time?
months.
Three
Yeah,
months.
3 months
Wow.
in market. Yeah. And then we held the window open 60 days to measure it. But yeah,
Right.
yeah. So yeah,
Us.
no, yeah. So the proof is in the pudding. And I would think if I'm one of your your focus audience, um, I often wonder, Phil, how much when you guys are looking at doing deals, how hard do they get to delve into what is this? If it's just one dealership, let's say, what is this dealership's? I know fixed overhead coverage is always looked at, but that can be driven largely by how new the building is and all that. But how deeply do you guys look at what's the service market, like the 1 to 7 year service retention?
Yeah.
Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? And how does that figure into the valuation?
Well, no, you bring up a great point, and it's funny you bring that up because I had a call earlier this morning with a friend of mine who helps me put together my confidential offering memorandums, and we were talking a little bit about a particular deal that I'm working on right now, and it's interesting because I was saying that one of the metrics that people don't look to is, the active users in the database, and in Honda terminology, lapsed customers, right? And the opportunity and how our dealers are addressing it. So you're absolutely right, and this is something that I really feel like I need to bring to highlight for buyers because it not only demonstrates what a current dealer is doing, it also allows a buyer to say, "Hey, I might be able to do a little bit better with this or with that," and help them kind of get find their way towards the valuation. It's interesting that you bring that up.
I was just looking at the Carlisle study this morning. They do the national North American Service Benchmark study, and you've got networks out there who are at 35% service market share, which is dismal. You've got ones that are
Good.
at 70%. So if you're a dealer and you're, if let's say it's a Mercedes store, and they tend to be in the high 60s as service market share,
Right.
but you're a particular dealer and you have a lot of UIO, but your particular dealership that you're looking at is only at 35%. There's a lot of upside there. I mean, it's a ton of
Yep.
upside. Um,
Ton.
with the numbers on customer pay repair order, Mercedes is going to be around almost $900 per customer pay repair order, on average. The low end is $150 per repair order. So if you're looking at a Mercedes store who's dangling around $400 repair order for customer pay, there's a lot of upside there too. So if you've got a reasonable sized unit and operation base and they're underperforming in those kind of metrics, I would think that would be an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that I always go back to one thing that my dealer days was, there's three ways to build your business, right? One is to acquire new customers, very expensive proposition. One is to get your existing customer base to come back more frequently. And the third being get your existing customer base to spend more with you when they do come, right? Which the latter two are both easily, like way much more efficient models than acquiring new customers, right?
No, absolutely. And I think every OE and every dealer, I would think, has a very good understanding of pretty much 100% of everyone who's in their ASA with one of their cars. So we know 100% of the
Hmm.
service work for a Mercedes shop is going to come from Mercedes owners. So and that's fairly knowable. And so, to your point, numbers 2 and 3 are a lot easier to get done, and can be measured a lot easier that way. And then, the same thing is true for lower funnel and new car sales. Depending on the
Right.
franchise, as 50 to 80% of the new car sales are going to come from existing owners or prior owners. So again, you're
Right. And
you're
they're higher
you're,
gross
you're
profits, faster CSI, and higher gross, better CSI. And guess what? The deals are quicker.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
So
there's
who you, Chuck, who you're currently working with? If you can say
so
you can, you can't.
no worries. What I can tell you is the amp model is in. We've got two mass brand OEMs. We've got two luxury branded OEMs that we're working with, and we've got a couple of finance companies, and we've got we're chatting with three other OEMs at this point, and we've got a couple of large dealer groups that we're also
Mm,
pursuing. Uh, and the reason I won't name names right this second is just that the way we operate, we want our solution to be their solution. So it's not.
I see.
It wouldn't be Mercedes Benz or BMW, or it would be their marketing solution. It wouldn't be the AMP marketing solution, because
Right.
it's a
AMP isn't
pretty
looking to build a
bespoke.
household name, right?
Right. Our
Right.
goal and our charge is to increase their service market share dramatically and sustainably. That then they own the solution. It's not. We're looking to embed a solution that'll operate for decades within their ecosystem and keep them happy. And
I would,
so
I
we're
think
yeah we're
the,
not we're not
I,
looking to label.
I think some of the low hanging fruit, looking at a lot of deals and working a lot of deals, buy sells and what have you. You work with some of the top tier brands, but I think of some of the kind of tertiary brands, some of the lesser known Asian brands that have, well, not lesser known, but they just don't have the loyalty and the retention component historically. I would think that those brands who will remain unknown or unsaid, um, would be starving for something like this, because it just adds, when you've got loyalty, a la, like you said, Mercedes Benz or a Toyota, you've got, it adds such value to the brand and to the franchise, intrinsic franchise value, that it would be hard not to look for tools that would dramatically increase. And when I say dramatically, I mean 5%, 10%. When you start talking 20%, which are results you've had, you know, those are huge for those tertiary brands.
Yeah, okay, yeah, they're absolute game changers. And no, you're absolutely right. If you can look at the studies yourself, see it in Auto News. Some of some of the ones you're thinking of have suffered badly recently, and some of it is heavy fleet sales coming home to roost. It's obviously when those cars get sold by the daily rental operators, Hertz and others. There is no, because of the laws now, there is no record of who bought that car.
Right.
So there could be 20 or 30% of the unit and operation base in a given market that you really don't have a good handle on who owns that vehicle, and you got to work pretty hard at getting them to come to your stores. And once they do, then you have them in your system. Um, but that said, I mean, even I'm thinking one brand in particular, even given that hurdle, they're falling off dramatically still in the known UIO service loyalty. So, um, yeah,
Mm.
we're working hard to help wherever we can. There's a lot of opportunity out there.
And I think with the migrate, and this is something I hadn't even thought about until just now, but um, for this conversation, but when you think about the impact of electric vehicles on fixed operations, and I've had a few conversations on the show when really kind of thinking this through a little bit, because conventional wisdom would say, gee, electric vehicles, components that get switched out, the labor's not as going to be as much labor. You're not repairing things as much as you are
Right.
just replacing. And
Right.
so,
And a lot of telematic updates.
exactly, over the air stuff that's coming through, but what are your thoughts on EVs and the impact on fixed ops?
You know, I don't think it's going to be as dramatic of a reduction as some are thinking. I think it's going to be more than what other people are thinking. Um, there's no doubt. I mean, there's going to be less moving parts, but there's a lot more technology.
Right.
Some of that technology will be, like you say, over the air, updated. But there's friction materials, air conditioning units. There's a lot of stuff that's going to need help and servicing. Um, I think I was talking with Tesla in the early days, and I think their model was something like they want to see the car once a year, and it's going to be about $600. And some people aren't even
Right.
taking it in once a year, by the way. Um,
Right.
I think there's going to be plenty of work, but and I think it's a big but. If you're a dealer right now and you have 70% market service market share, which is that's fantastic. You had that.
Right.
I think to keep the same revenue and the same profit structure that you've got in 10 years, like when we see the real wave coming of electrified, I think you're going to need even more than that just to keep the same level of profitability, or you're going to need to do some restructuring things. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, what it says is, I think it's you got to grab all the service market share you can as quickly as you can, and then hold on to it, because it's likely that the unit and operation base need will reduce somewhat. So
Mm.
you know, time to grow is now. I think, and then hold on and keep growing as best you can, and to offset whatever reduction that this new wave of cars may bring.
It's interesting, right? One of the things to think I think about is, the kind of the migration away from dealers to independent shops. I got to think that EVs are going to change that dramatically.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of high tech stuff in there, and you
Right.
know, even with the right to repair laws, which are very very strong and getting stronger, um,
Mm.
I'm guessing there'll still be a significant cost to entry. So, and my sense is that if I've got a 12-year-old F-150, I'm very likely to take it to local mechanic. Probably not with a high tech EV. I don't
Yep.
think I think that would be much further ways down the road when that's much more ubiquitous.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you on that. That's so. Yeah, curious. So, what so when it comes to fixed ops, how has the customer journey changed? And I mean, as a result of COVID, and has that customer journey, or if it's changed, has it created new opportunities for dealers?
Um, I visited a lot of stores during COVID, and I was really amazed and impressed at how quickly uh, literally everyone that I visited had adapted to touchless, and to pick up and delivery where reasonable. Um, I know many OEs changed their messaging quite quickly. Some froze for a minute or two there, and then woke back up. Yeah, no, I
Right.
think customer journey has definitely changed. I think it's accelerated the idea of touchless, and all the digital transformations that all the OEs have been undertaking um, kind of sped up in many ways, and there's good and there's bad in those. I'm sure your audience will attest to. And there's different
Right.
approaches, some very draconian and top down, and some much more in tune with, let's face it, in the digital space, the retailer knows a lot better than the OEM, because they're out there seeing if it works every single day.
Sure.
And so some of the approaches that I've seen are much more aware of that reality and treat that reality respectfully versus trying to top down it. But we're seeing a lot of changing of even like as we're talking with different clients. Okay, what the data tells us, from the last year and a half is very different than what we've seen, for 10 years hence or prior. So it is time to adjust some of these touch points and how you're talking and what's important to clients.
Yeah, I think that there's probably, and we could talk more about this offline, but I think that there's really an opportunity for the new. I think there's a whole new kind of group of KPIs, um, new things that dealers should be looking at, in my opinion. And I think that there's a dramatic shift that can come from a focus on fixed. And people who watch the show, they know that I'm kind of obsessed with fixed ops and and the impact on dealers' profitability. And I
Yeah,
think that there really is a reset out there. Are you feeling it as well?
yeah, no, absolutely. And a friend of ours who you helped put a deal together with on a
Hmm.
store, what a great
Right.
example. He took over a
Yeah.
store that you know really was writing a lot of red ink and very quickly flipped that around, and that was heavily on the back of fixed ops, and then of course
Yeah.
strong variable ops performance as well. But um, no, a lot. I think for the OE and this with this particular piece of time accepted, especially for the retailers, this chunk of time that we're in now with the crazy inventory,
Right.
no inventory pressures and huge valuations on used vehicles. Other than this time right now, I think I've seen everyone waking up to the fact that if we need to keep the current engine of our business running while we're recreating a whole new engine, a whole new way to do
Hmm.
business in the future, we've really got to optimize every piece of the current business. And a lot that hasn't gotten real focus over, traditionally is are we really optimizing our fixed ops? And so I see a lot of heavy focus, even from the traditionally variable
Yes.
side operators at the OEs, looking across and saying, wait a minute, we really should be, why aren't we at
Yeah.
60% market share? And
Yeah.
because they can do the math quite quickly
In
what that means
fixed,
for
right?
repurchase
In,
rates.
in fixed, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
So
I
yeah,
think
no,
that,
it's it,
over the years, right, people talk market share, and it's always about new vehicle sales, right? And well, that's nice, and as loyalties on the variable side of things kind of shift, I think it's definitely, I think that is definitely, shifted to where people aren't as loyal to a brand on the new variable side, but once they have that vehicle, they're the opportunity to retain those customers, make them loyal customers, is a huge opportunity.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I've said it before in my prior roles. The new car advertising and the new car sales department has to sell the first car, and really it's
Yeah.
tends to be fixed operations who sells car if they're doing it right, two, three, four, and five. And I've got several really dear friends who are also dealers who literally, uh, and I've seen the clients. I've actually interviewed some of them in prior jobs who once they came to their store and bought a car from them, they will not buy a brand that dealer doesn't own. And so I mean,
Mm.
literally, this is a great story about a Acura store and
Uh-huh.
who had actually a couple of twin sisters who were devoted customers, and they really wanted to get into a hybrid. Well, at the time, Acura didn't have a hybrid, and they were looking at the Lexus hybrid SUV,
Right.
and they came back to their Acura dealer and said, "Hey, you're going to have to just sell us another MDX, but you better get a hybrid pretty soon because, but we can't buy a car that is not from you." And you guys don't, at the time, they didn't have Lexus in their stable. So, I mean,
Right.
that's to me the power of a really good fixed operations, a really good client journey. And it's not just fixed. It's certainly, it's from the soul of the sales consultants all the way through the dealership. And but it's powerful. That loyalty is is worth so much money, right? And I gotta believe when you walk into a store, and I when I walk into a store, I can sense it immediately. And automotive store, almost any other retail outlet, you can sense immediately people are tuned in, turned on, and they're there to make sure a client's having a great experience because they know with that client engaged, everything flows much easier and it ends up being much more lucrative. Um, but yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I'll say. So finally, Chuck, you mentioned that dealers are waking up to a lot of the things we've been discussing, and I'll ask you, speaking of waking up, what keeps you up at night? Come on
this
now.
this tractor out here, um, you know, honestly, yeah, to me, it's having conversations like this with people in the industry, and the amount of I would call it latent or untapped potential, and I can look across almost any brand from an OE perspective and almost any dealer group and see that there are literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars per year that aren't being realized, that ought to be tapped and that they can be tapping literally with less money that they're spending today.
Right.
Um, and so getting that value tapped into is really what drives my mission is how do we in some cases, as you and your viewers know, there's a lot of inertia in any system. So
Sure.
it's trying to get past that inertia and help people see the reality of what can be, basically the reality of what can be. Uh, so that's, to me, that keeps it very, very exciting and it's very real and measurable and repeatable. It's very scientific. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
kind of
The
my
data doesn't
what
lie.
keeps.
The data does not lie.
No,
So,
no.
Chuck, thank you for being on the show today. This has been everything and more than I had even hoped for. So, I can't
Well,
thank you
you
enough.
have
Is
low
there anything you
expectations, so I appreciate that.
it, the bar was set really, really low. So,
Right.
was there anything else before I let you go? How do people follow you and connect with you, Chuck? What's the best way?
Sure,
Socially,
sure.
LinkedIn or Twitter? What?
Yep, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. My email is chuck.kendig@amp.partners. Um, I'm Chuck Kendig at Gmail as well. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, love to hear from anybody. And I guess I would say, if you're looking through your deals and trying to understand, which maybe you're trying to understand as a dealer, what deals to keep, what deals, what dealerships to keep, what dealerships to buy. And if you can get and look at the service market share for you and for your, let's say, surrounding regions and the nation, how it compares, I think that'll help you a lot understanding, what untapped potential there is out there in the world for that store or the store maybe you're considering to buy. Um,
Right.
and you might press your factory reps if you're seeing lackadaisical um, service market share for the network overall. You might press your dealer advisory board. Maybe you're on the dealer advisory board. You might press them for what are we doing structurally to change how we're operating so that we can take our service market share if we're in the 40s to the 60s, because there's just a
Hmm.
ton of value and retention and labor and part sales to be had that is crazy. It's either not happening or it's going to the big box guys or the little box guys. Uh,
Absolutely. Chuck, uh, great conversation. And I would like to say thank you again. And to the audience, until next time, we'll see you. Thank you.